So I've gotten to the point where I don't really care how people treat me. I mean, I care how people treat me, but I don't care what they think I am, gender-wise. And I just try to be me. And I mean, I try to be a nice person. That's one of my goals in life. And it always has been. And I think that helps me. So I think that's the biggest thing. So that's why I don't feel there's as big a need to be stealth in every situation as there used to be. But I know people that have gotten fired and have had troubles. But even one of my best friends, who's an engineer at a big aircraft company or aircraft engine company, and she's worried, and she's had some bad reactions to her, and she talked to the people she works for, and they asked her what her problems were, and she told them, and they fixed things as well as they could and promoted her and gave her a raise. So it's a tricky thing, and she's not really stealth quite, and she's taller than me a little bit, and which height is a big thing for being identified as transgender, I think. And so it's tricky. I think the world I travel in is accepting enough that people know or don't know, and they tend to treat me pretty much the same, it seems. So much so that I had one issue, never in astronomy have I had an issue, but when I was in the hospital 2 years ago, and my identification didn't match me very well. I got treated sort of weirdly by a few people, and later I didn't even know it could have been because I was transgender. But afterwards, after thinking about it, I realized, yep, it was because I was transgender, and they didn't quite know how to deal with me. So so it happens, but it's when it's rare, you don't notice it always. So it's sort of funny because I just don't expect it, and I think not expecting it helps for me. That if I don't expect people to treat me funny, they're less likely to, and if I treat them pretty normally, they're less likely to. So in the end, because I have this web presence, because so many people know me in astronomy, people know me in Boston, in the city, that I had to be sort of public. I couldn't be stealth.
Right. You said you had a friend who got fired for being transgender.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People that happen, often they'll get laid off for claims of other things. That somebody will lay you off because you're transgender is a reason. They'll make up others.
You on STEM, like on science, engineer, tech, mathematics, or in another field?
I think generally the worst places I've heard are from engineers. I've never heard of anybody in science in recent years. I mean, I don't know that many people that are trans in science, but the ones that I know, I've always been wary, and I've sort of, the ones I know around here are very small number, and two of them were going the other way, were F to M. One of them's been very successful, but it's pretty stealth. And the other one was a postdoc, and it made a difference to his future, like how it all worked.
What difference did it make?
Well, he was worried about his future, as trying to find jobs after being a postdoc, and he wasn't too worried about the job he was in, but more about what does it do afterwards. There's a lot of things. I think in astronomy we're pretty good about publications. So like ADS, ADS is set up for name changes. So if you search on my either name, you get all my publications. Yes. And that's nice. And it's true of anybody. And so that we're in some ways in a good place. And I think being at universities and being in the U.S. government are good places to be right now if you're trans. Sort of good. University's better in some ways because the U.S. government's going to be a while before they pay for stuff.
So then, is that why you say that you think it's worse when it comes to engineering because there it is not the university, it isn't a government job, there is industry, and then in industry there are easier ways to fire people for details like being trans?
I think there are easier ways to fire. I mean, I know people that have been in places that have been pretty protected appearing and then have gotten laid off. Mm. And I think that it's, it's tricky. I think that engineering in general is a more macho kind of thing anyway. And so people are sort of wary about women in the first place in a lot of kinds of, still, it should be changing, but it's not changing as fast as it should be. And I think, that's part of it. And astronomy, there are some places, but I think in general, I'm not worried about anything that wouldn't worry another woman right now, other than my age.
That ties to another question that I was wondering here. So you transition male to female, right? So
right.
You familiar with Ben Bars, right? Who transitioned female?
I heard him talk.
Yeah, and then he says that he had to deal with comments like, "Oh, your research is much better than your sister's." So then I was wondering, did you feel the opposite? That means like a loss of male privilege, like being a trans woman. Like, how do you deal with male dominance in society in general, and the still low participation of women in science?
That's a good question. It's really funny. I had a discussion on Facebook with this because somebody, an astronomer on the West Coast who had a close friend who was transitioning, had a lot of questions that she didn't feel comfortable asking this friend and wondered if I could answer them. And a lot of them were feminist questions and about workforce participation by women and women in science and how should that be. And it was a pretty challenging discussion. It was very interesting. And she was young. And a lot of the prejudice has maybe gotten against women is more hidden, but there's still stuff that's there. And I don't feel like I'm a pretty forceful person, and I think I've gotten more that way since I transitioned. So I tend to I've had times when people haven't, but they're more likely to have a hard time figuring out what slot, if they're slotting people in male or female, they don't know how to slot me, especially if they've known me for a long time. And it was really funny. I was lobbying in Washington on a bicycle issue in March, and I was with a group of people that I'd known, some of them I'd known for a very, very long time, and I founded the organization that was co-founded this statewide bike organization 20 years ago. And so that was who was leading this. So I was like, I had this clout for being the leader, but they were going to meet with one of our federal representatives who was a woman, and we got a meeting with the representative herself and not an aide. And they said all the women from the group should go to meet this person because women's issues are our big thing. And they didn't include me at first. So I said, what about me? And they said, oh, you can come too. And so I did, and the men tried to speak on women's issues, and I broke in. Once I was in it, I had enough standing. I could break into the men if they were trying to say something